whatever the IRS said, like you owe us whatever the number is, $1,000. If you don't respond, even if you're right, you make them right by not responding.
What to do when you get a letter from the IRS? Because, in business, you're going to send them some mail, they're going to send you some mail, but most people completely lose their mind when they see that little stamp on the outside and they toss it over with the bills and they try to forget like it just, maybe will disappear if they don't look at it. But why don't you tell us a little bit about a great way to respond or deal with the IRS when they happen to send letters or however they communicate?
Well, that reminds me of somebody asked Gandhi, they're like, well, what do you think of Western civilization? And he goes, I think it'd be a good idea. So when you say, what's a good way to respond to the IRS? Well, maybe just respond. Let's just start there. Because, as social slaves, as we all are, when you get a letter from the IRS, it's not usually a pretty, nice, we're so grateful for you kind of letter. It's usually somehow threatening feeling. In fact, you need to know that the IRS spends millions of dollars in psychologists just to draft letters that invoke the maximum fear response in taxpayers. Yeah, so that's tax dollars at work, isn't it? And you'll find the difference between being a taxpayer person and a business is that the business letters are a lot nicer than the ones that come to taxpayers. And we'll talk about in a future episode what the difference between a maker and a taker is. But there's definitely language in the IRS letters that has us go, oh, no, what do we do? Let's just not respond. And that's your fear response, the flight response. And a lot of people have flight over fight when it comes to IRS. And even if you're a fighter, when an IRS letter comes, most people tend to flight. And that is put your head in the ground and just hope it goes away, which is the worst possible thing to do or to not do. And we call that actually, it's called commercial dishonor. And it means that whatever the IRS said, like you owe us whatever the number is, $1,000. If you don't respond, even if you're right, you make them right by not responding. It's called non-performance. And if you have non-performance or non-response under administrative law, under the Uniform Commercial Code, if you don't respond to an offer, then whatever they said was true, that's true. And if you, in the court world, it's called a default judgment. If you don't show up, if a plaintiff sues you and serves you correctly, and there's a court date and you don't show up to represent your side, then the plaintiff automatically wins, even if they're completely wrong.
No.
So, yeah.
That's terrible. So when you say respond, I mean, I'm going to call them, right? Like, am I going to call or send an email, or should I always send a letter?
It's a really good question. Under commercial law, you tend to want to, not really required, but you tend to want to respond in the medium in which you received an offer. Now, how do you know what an offer is? Well, that's easy. You got it in the mail. If it came in the mail, it doesn't matter if it's a threat, if it's a declaration, if it's a bill, if it's we're going to nuke your dog and eat your lunch. That's an offer. Even if it's threatening and says, you're wrong and we're the IRS and we're going to do this to you, that is an offer. And the more you understand how to negotiate those offers, the better in life you tend to be, not just with the IRS, but with creditors, relationships, and all that other stuff. So if you get a letter and then you call them, that's kind of breaking that a little bit. Now, can you call them? Of course. And most of the time the letters say, please call us. Yeah, but don't do that. The only reason you should call the IRS, besides the fact you're going to be on hold forever.
Yeah.
So, and you're going to get somebody who all they do all day is answer the phone for the IRS from people who are calling on one of the worst days of their life. How would you like to have that job? You're an IRS agent and all you do is answer people, how dare you? That's my money. And, you can't take my house and all these people and my business. And what a horrible job. And by the way, if you want to have an unfair...
Yeah, that's worse than dentist, and might be worse than the mortician. At least people don't necessarily talk back. So
I hope your clients in the morgue aren't talking back. Otherwise, you're a really bad mortician. Just bonk on the head, maybe.
But that's got to be the worst job.
The worst. And if you want to have an unfair competitive advantage when you call the IRS, if you have to, that's when they answer and they get through their spiel and their badge number. You be so filled with gratitude and thankfulness. I always call them late at night. So if I have to. And so I'm like, oh, thank you so much for working late. I really appreciate it. I so appreciate your service. And thank you so much for, taking the time to talk to me at them, because I know you're probably got a lot of people to talk to. That is not in their script. And if you can interrupt their expectation of how things are going, I've had such great results when I've had to, very rarely, call the IRS and be like the so thankful for their service, as if they were somebody who had just come back from war and had their leg sawed off or whatever. You're like, oh, thank you so much for making the ultimate sacrifice. Those people are making the ultimate sacrifice. They're sacrificing the only non-renewable resource on the planet, which is their time to deal with angry people. So thank you. So, but if you had a letter, even if the letter says call us, don't call them. Respond with a letter. Now, some of you all have never actually even sent a letter, so you don't even know. Well, there's stamps, right? Isn't that on there somewhere? For those of us in Gen X, you're like, really? People don't send letters? We worked with a marketing agency not too many weeks ago, and we did a video. And we talked about sending letters, and he's like, "So you actually send letters?" I'm like, "Yeah, they sent you a letter, didn't they?" He goes, "Oh yeah." So you use stamps? Yes, there is a postal service. Still functional, not very solvent, but definitely functional. So if you get a letter from the IRS, you want to respond with the letter. Now, if you get a phone call from the IRS, 99 times out of 100, it's not from the IRS. It's from a scammer. The IRS is not going to call you unless you have a pre-existing appointment or something like this. They're going to send you a letter. That's the only thing that's legal.
And they're certainly not sending a text. I've got the text.
They're not going to send you no text. No. Now, if you pay your bill electronically, then you're going to get the text confirmations. That's different. But like to manage issues, they're going to send you a letter because there's a record. So you want to respond to a record. How soon should you respond? Like within 3 days. 3 days.
Yeah. And I remember you told me to always get a receipt. So I should not only send it via the mail, but I should get a certified receipt for anything that I send, so I can prove, if I ever need to prove, that I did send the communication. So
I just sent off all my S Corps and partnership returns before the deadline, which was today, March 17th, 2025. So there's no record that I sent it unless I have what's called certified and then a return receipt. Now, you can do this via email, but I never do. I put the little green cards, or like little postcards. You pay a little extra for them. They actually get attached to your letter, envelope, whatever. Yeah. And then you have a certified document that gets stamped by the post person there. And then you get a thing that says, I sent it. But it's not really legitimate until there's proof that they received it. See, if it got lost in the mail, and then they could say, well, we never got it. Yes, you have a green card, a little green thing that says certified mail. There, I sent it. But there's no real connection between the parcel you sent and that green card, unless you have some identifying number. But who's to say, because it was lost in the mail. But if you have a green card that's attached to that parcel, when the IRS gets it, or anybody else, they'll get it, and then they have to sign that little green card to receive it. Once they receive it, they tear it off and they mail it back to you. Now you know that they got it on this particular day at that postal address, whatever. So when they say, well, we never got it, you're like, what's this green card mean? It means you got it. And it's not when they received it that matters, it's when you posted it. But if they never got it and you don't know, they could argue a whole bunch of things. So always send not only certified mail, but green card receipt, return receipt. And then you'll know they got it, or they didn't. Maybe they really didn't get it, and then no one has the green card. And if you can't produce the green card or an email, then you have to send it again.
Yeah, I always leave the receipt in my handbag until I get the green card back in the mail, because it does take a little while sometimes, and the mail's slower in Los Angeles than mud, frankly. But I leave it in there just to keep reminding me, and I don't put it away and then when I do put it away, I put it away with the taxes for that year so that I can find it again should I actually need to be able to show that I did send it. So made that mistake a few times in life.